Erik Nachtrieb holds a master's degree in molecular biology from Western Washington University and worked as a scientist in stem cell research at the Fred Hutch Cancer Research Center. Outside of the lab, Erik actively competed in adventure racing, including the popular TV show Eco Challenge, where he raced in Fiji for 10 days and competed in Team USA Olympic wrestling trials. With a passion for storytelling, Erik created One Eye Open Productions in 2005, which has produced award-winning adventure film and TV production on all 7 continents, using his street smart business skills, negotiation tactics, and management experience to arrange access to military-controlled zones, cooperation of foreign governments, and consent of customs offices worldwide. Viv Smith holds a bachelor's degree in digital media from the College of Fine Arts, part of which she completed in Paris at the Université Diderot, making her a fluent French speaker and holder of useless film facts. Viv has worked around the world from the jungles of Costa Rica to the Swiss Alps. She has gained valuable marketing experience at a Sydney-based advertising firm, Brain Designs, and has worked on a range of projects from fashion, feature film production, TVCs, corporate video, and music videos, and has directed and produced her own work at One Eye Open Productions. Viv is also a keen musician, proficient in piano and trumpet, and recently, ukulele, a more suitable option for life on the road. Welcome, Erik and Viv. You can start now.
I've just got to do the awkward Zoom unmute, so thanks for that. Hello, and thank you for having us. We're really excited to be here. As Erik mentioned, we are filmmakers, and I think the best way, honestly, to introduce filmmakers is to watch some of their films. So we put together a quick sizzle reel for just a minute. So if you just bear with us, we'll throw that up, and you can take a look at that before we get going.
Just a second. Well, you can see that was a pretty amazing dream job to have. We created that job ourselves out of thin air originally. And we were very excited in the end of 2019, 2020 to be able to do this again in 2020. However, it turns out this is not a job you can do over Zoom, which is something I think none of us anticipated at all, right? So what we did to give you, let me set the context here. It's March 2020, and we're about to embark on 6 months across 5 global locations, Hong Kong, Vietnam, back to Aspen, Thailand. Viv was already in Australia in March, doing some visa paperwork and anticipating meeting me in Delhi. I was flying to Delhi where our first project was going to start on this junket. And the world had already been doing a strange thing. And we were just trying to understand what's going on. But, being very optimistic, we're like, let's just keep moving forward. And then the world started closing its borders. And in 10 hours, literally within 10 hours, we had phone calls from all over the world, all of our handlers, connectors, funders, and they're saying, we're not doing anything. We're done. We're stopped. Everything's stopped. And we're like, for how long? And well, you know, at least a few months, but we don't know. And there's this weird panicky kind of thing going on. You could read in the background. And again, I'm in the US, Viv is in Australia, and we're like, what do we do? She's got like a bag of clothing because we travel pretty light as we move around building these production teams. And we thought, well, let's wait till the last minute while you're there before you fly to Delhi. Maybe we pivot to a US flight. What happens? And I get a phone call on the last day from the airport, 5 a.m, wakes me up, and Viv says, I'm standing here and this is the last flight leaving Australia. There are no more flights after this. The guy told me, what do we do? What do we want to do? And we decide that her resources are there, her government support, her family are in Sydney. Why don't we just wait this out, at the worst, a couple months, and see what happens? Well, Viv is Skyping you or Zooming you. It was Skype at the time, Zooming you from Sydney, Australia right now. She is still not escaped from that day, but soon, it's coming soon. So we're like, now what do we do? You know, we thought, okay, let's start building future work with the people that we are, our global network. And you couldn't even get a phone call from anybody. They were busy wondering what the heck they're going to do with their jobs. That was definitely not going to happen. And we thought, all right, what kind of work can we do now that we can do remotely? Maybe we can get some edit work. No one's doing any work to edit. So Viv had been working on a script with our good friend and now co-founder of SetJetters, Charlie Hartsock. And we'd also been developing this TV show that Charlie had said, hey, you guys, I got this cool show that I think is a real good fit to the way you guys produce. And it's from the early 2000s. I put this short sizzle pilot together. And so he dusted that off, and we'd been taking a look at it, and it looked really cool. And so we thought, well, we can work on these two things, get those going for a few months, and then start pitching them in a few months. And the writing on the wall began to show us that, you know, this is not going to happen. So this television show, SetJetters, where you take a host around the world, very Anthony Bourdain-ish, and you visit film scenes and you introduce culture and travel and why they chose this place and why this place is much greater than the scene that was shot there that made you interested in it. And so this fit the bill for a few months, and we started really doing our research on how we're going to build the pitch deck, etc. We discovered while doing this that there are a lot of film scenes around the world, more than we anticipated. Something like hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions, if you go across Bollywood and everywhere. We also discovered there's 105 million people a year who travel to these film locations, are influenced to travel by television and film. We thought that's really interesting. And as time went on here a few months, we're like, I don't think we're going to produce any television shows or films anytime soon. We thought, well, let's build an app around these locations, because what we realized is people aren't traveling internationally right now. They might in about 6 months, we thought. But they're going to travel domestically because they weren't locked down at that point. And so they're going to, be looking for things to do in their own city. We can at least capitalize on that. So let's build this app around travel and film, which when we started proposing it to people, they're like, are you out of your mind? This is like the last thing anybody is going to want to touch. And people were starting to see this was going to be a bit longer. In addition, we had no idea how to write code. We didn't know how to build an app. And one thing which we've learned is we had no idea what the startup world looks like, or have we ever existed in it. We've always been entrepreneurs. That is a different beast than startup world. And we began learning quite a bit, but we had to figure out how to build this. So we dug into our network and we looked at, okay, who can we find that is we think we could work with for a while, who are fun to work with, but also have a complementary skill set. And the other two co-founders here, Kate and Carl, Charlie and Viv and I brought on to augment us. And Carl is our React Native engineer for our tech stack, and Kate has been set jetting since she was like 17. So she really knew the user we were going after and understood what kind of UX that they would be looking for. In addition, she has a deep network globally in games. She's the IGDA president, International Game Developers Association president. So this seemed like a natural fit for us. So now it was time not only to build this, but to validate the market, the revenue models, raise funding, and create this solution for travelers, which Viv is going to tell you a little bit about here.
Yeah, so let me show you what we actually built. To understand kind of SetJetters is kind of wrapping your head around the problem that we were tackling. So Erik mentioned this market, this 105 million people that are influenced to travel annually by from the films and TV that they watch. But as Kate pointed out, and our research quickly showed that it's actually surprisingly difficult to get to these scene locations. Like this one behind me is a Star Wars one. And we found that, yes, there might be a Lord of the Rings guidebook for New Zealand, but it just does Lord of the Rings. And there's some obscure blog on the internet that does all the Soprano locations, but you have to go to somewhere else for Star Wars. And very quickly, the information's all over the place. And then we found out there's also a huge opportunity for businesses near these film scenes to capitalize on these tourists that have come specifically for this particular bit of Earth. And one thing we did understand as filmmakers was that no matter how remote a shot looks, filmmaking is a very, it requires a lot of people. So your infrastructure is huge, which means any film scene is always within arm's reach of facilities. Toilets, running water, power, accommodation, food. So effectively that means there's often a town nearby. So that means that for tourists, there's a town nearby, which means there's businesses. So we built an app. Now this first image gives you a little idea of this problem that we were solving. People right now, to this day, there's lots of Instagram accounts of people printing out photographs from movie scenes and wandering around town trying to match them up. So quite elegantly on SetJetters, you can search for the scene that you're looking for. We'll give you an exact GPS location of where it was shot. And we created this shot sync camera, which allows you to line up the scene from the movie against your own photograph. We like to think of this as the Pokemon Go for film locations. So coming back to that business model that Erik had mentioned and this whole idea of a town near a scene, this is the first market that we've been tackling. This is kind of where we're pulling our revenue from. So the best way to wrap your head around this is actually in that circular photograph there. These are tourists who are trying to recreate a scene from Game of Thrones. And once again, they've printed out the scene. In the background is the city of Split, Croatia. This is full of what we call near scene businesses, ice cream parlors, coffee shops, hotels, all vying for the dollars in those tourist pockets. So on SetJetters, we gave them a place to advertise right next to the scenes that were relevant to them or on the map. And we've currently engaged in just the last year since we launched 150 businesses into our subscription model. But the really cool thing that we discovered in all of our kind of innovation and testing has been this QR code sticker, which we give to the businesses to put at their place of business. Because we knew we had to get a fast user acquisition plan out. And so we discovered that by leaving these little stickers here, you can see an example of one at the Oregon Film Museum, it allowed people to discover us. They could scan that QR code, download the app, and find the scenes that were near them. So we also have to pursue, of course, other revenue options, and this is what we're tackling at the moment. Being filmmakers, we of course had access to the studios. We're currently in talks with HBO, who are really excited about how SetJetters can revitalize an existing library of films like Game of Thrones, as well as market forward to new ones. We are currently coding right now for an affiliate travel program, which through this partner of ours, Copilot, allows you to book a specific hotel room. You could, for example, book the very hotel room where Jack Nicholson smashes through with an axe in The Shining. I will not be staying with you, but that is an option through our app. We have in-app purchases. You can get yourself a lightsaber for Star Wars scenes, gamification through creation of an NFT market around the badges that you can earn, as well as a premium model with offline maps and other features. So this gives you a global snapshot of what we achieved since our official launch to the public in June. We spent a lot of time in the summer, the American summer, and we have over 7,000 locations. and over 5,000 users. And I think the most exciting thing for us is that all of this traction here, our 5-star reviews and this increasing growth in users, happened despite COVID. Of course, as Erik mentioned, people thought we were mad building what was effectively a travel business in a pandemic. What we've effectively done is we've been given the worst case scenario to test a travel business in, and we've done it. So all of this we now can project forward as restrictions continue to ease. We've now got basically a really lovely projection forward for more growth. So the other thing we got really good at, we're good at as filmmakers, but we had to learn how to do it in the tech world, is of course raising money. Last year we raised 120K in a pre-seed round to actually get the app built and into the App Store. And we've learned that you have to keep doing it almost every year. So we're back at it again, this time going for a full seed round of 1.6 million. In that time, we're also, we got accepted into an accelerator program run by the Atlassian venture capitalist firm, Blackbird. And we were proud to announce that we actually, out of a cohort of 200 in that class, we got selected as top 5. And we got opportunity to pitch. And so that was a nice badge for us to pin on our lapels. I'll hand it back to you, Erik, to kind of wrap us up.
Let me unmute myself there. So that's not all we were doing. We wanted to keep connected to our film roots. Before I jump into our film roots, though, I want you to really understand, especially for this audience, it was really important for us to look forward at these businesses that really find these films and film scenes important. Main Street suffered during this period of time. And one of the things that we find is the businesses are very excited to intersect with this column we're isolating, where we're humanizing social media in a way. You have to be on the ground to experience this for the most part, but we're also allowing them to intersect with that column in a way that they're able to bring these tourists in for dollars on the ground on Main Street. And that's been really important for us and really important for the businesses. But as I was saying, we stayed connected to film. And as I mentioned earlier, Charlie and Viv were working on a narrative feature film. And that was one of the things besides the SetJetters TV show we were working on. And they went ahead during this whole time we're building the app to build out a proof of concept script, a few scenes they put together for a short film. And Viv was able to, while in Australia, get a hold of Chris Thompson, who you see here, and raise money for this short film and put it together and get it fully produced and in such a way that Flickerfest International Short Film Festival selected it, and that's an Academy Award qualifying film festival. So that was very exciting for us at the same time, because all of this is about networking. This is all about reaching out, never stopping, and continuing to go. So for us, what I'd like to do is ask you first to download SetJetters, use it, share it with everyone you know who loves film. And second, if you know someone or a group that aligns with what we're doing, we'd love to hear from you. And thanks for listening to what we've done, how we reinvented ourselves. Hope you enjoyed the story. And if you could take anything away from this, never stop moving forward and never stop networking. We built this entirely off our network. So thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Erik and Viv. That was fantastic. And just a little note, before Erik and I had a conversation about this, I was actually sharing SetJetters on Facebook with my friends, saying, "Hey, everyone, you have to check this out. This is such a fun app." And then Erik pinged me, I think it was on LinkedIn, and said, "I'm glad you liked it." And I'm like, well, what do you have to do with this? And then we had coffee, and I was just amazed with the entire idea. So fantastic presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next up is Joel Walker from Remote Medical International. Joel is the current director of government business development and management and manager of occupational medical screening, utilizes his vast medical knowledge from a 25-year-plus medical career in both civilian and military environments. As a civilian EMT and paramedic since 1994, with collateral assignments in fire rescue and special operations, including SWAT, search and rescue, and dive medicine, he has significant field medical treatment and emergency care experience. During his time with the Virginia Beach Special Operations Team, he led the medical team in continually evaluating its members based on the current standards practice from OSHA, NIOSH, FAA, and CDC recommendations on top of the standard occupational health physical. As a U.S. Navy hospital corpsman serving from 1994 to 2015, his 20-year-plus highly decorated career was designed around field and clinical medicine. During his career, Joel spent significant time in advanced leadership roles, including as aeromedical safety officer and senior medical department member for the Strike Fighter Wing Atlantic and its subordinate commands. This assignment had him solely responsible for reviewing all human performance and medical issues for 1,700 plus US Navy aviators and over 2,000 plus ground personnel, as well as being primary care provider for the 115-person Strike Wing Atlantic crew. Since joining RMI in 2016, he has held the roles of Senior Wilderness Medicine Instructor, Medical Screening Department Team Lead, Manager of Occupational Medical Services, and Director of Government Business Development. Welcome, Joel.
Thanks, Eric. Yeah, I've had a short career. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here real fast so everybody can see that. Yes, my background is all medicine, as most of you can tell. I have been with RMI now for a little while, going on about 7 years. This has been a truly unique evolution for us. And when we met earlier on in this one, and I give this one 100% to Erik and the crew from SetJetters, I stole their tagline. We were talking and Erik threw out this term and I said, Erik, I'm stealing that and I'm using it. And so I got to give him big credit on that. So innovation during a pandemic, right? This is something that we've entered into a world that none of us have ever seen before. None of us have ever been part of before. And we've tried to figure out how to do that. So my background at RMI was purely medicine until February of 2020. What's significant about that is I signed my contract to move out of occupational health and into sales. And literally 7 days later, the first case of COVID hit 5 miles from my home here in Washington State. So it has been an interesting run for me, to say the least, and to sort of see where RMI has transitioned through this whole process. RMI started in Washington State in 2003. Our basis was that of medical training, remote medical training, austere environment training, and equipment and supply, putting the right piece of equipment, the right tool in the hand of the right trained provider to head out overseas into some of these great locations that Erik and Viv were talking about with larger groups. We started shortly after that. Our clients that we were training for years said, hey, your instructors are amazing. Can't we just hire them? Instead of you coming and training, can't we just hire your guy to come out on this trip with us, or out on this vessel, or out on this evolution and be our support service? So On-Site Medical Services was born around 2007. Our first major contract offshore platforms began in 2008. We rapidly developed a secondary program because once we were there, life was good. We were in touch with the personnel, in touch with the staff on site, loving life. Our providers, we have an international field of providers, well over 300 at this stage, that work in a myriad of different locations, and we'll talk about some of those in a minute. But the problem was when somebody got hurt or something needed to happen, how did we get them back? So we built another department that focused and concentrated solely on medical evacuation and repatriation to that person's primary care residence. And we've done things to Germany, we've done them to Africa, we've done them back to the US, the UK. It all depends on the person's preferred location or where they're currently living, based on our staffing model. Shortly after the medical evacuation, we realized that telemedicine was a new and upcoming technique in 2013, and it was a really great product to have. But every physician, every EMT, every paramedic that we put in the field had to call back to speak to a doctor for secondary opinions, extra medication, and that sort of thing. So we put that sort of callback service into an actual business line in 2013. And we've had recent contracts with Military Sealift Command and other large contracts across the globe, specifically for that telehealth, where people could just pick up the phone and talk to a doctor. And if you've never done that, welcome to the modern world of medicine. I scheduled my daughter an appointment this morning, and my wife took her upstairs into our upstairs office and had a phone call with her doctor. My daughter is 6. And so that is the new world of medicine, is you can have a in-person appointment, but it's much easier to get an external telehealth appointment for your physician in any place in the world right now. And it's nice because even traveling, the SetJetters folks could be calling back and saying, hey, this person's not feeling well, here's the symptoms, and they can talk to a physician and get a realistic opinion at that point. Which was an amazing thing for us in the time of 2013, and as you can tell, has grown significantly since then. We have grown organically. We've spread our offices out, and part of that organic growth has actually been acquisition as well. In mid-2018, we acquired a company called HSC Offshore out of the UK, which was a large safety and medical company that did offshore seismic vessels and offshore oil platforms in the North Sea. And then as recent as 2020, we acquired a group called SSI Risk Management, SSI Energy, and they are a large presence in the renewable energies market. And as we're seeing the world expand its role, we've started to kind of change our role from our traditional fields to some other newer roles. And so one of the things I think is very unique, the company mission has always been to protect and save lives. However, one of the key factors to that is high quality integrated medical care. So it's not just this piece of here's a medic or here's a person, here's a medical bag. We've always had the second and third lines of defense for you to call back and talk to take that protect and save to a grander scale. It's not just a paramedic or an EMT on a site putting on a Band-Aid. We can go further. If you're in the jungles of South America, we've done things where we've actually done prescriptions for antibiotics, and the medic has had that equipment with them, and they've been able to treat you even before it got to that large scale problem, which I know, Erik, in some of your adventure racing days, you probably have seen some really nasty, funky things come out of different places in the world from racing. I have a background there too, so that's interesting. So, one of the things that allowed us to change in the pandemic and make the shifts, if you look at our key values, quality of care was a big one for us. So it's not just making sure the care is done correctly, but it has to be done to a high level. But the agility to move from piece to piece and location to location has always been at the forefront of remote medical. So in this point, instead of being a remote and austere environment, it was more of a contained and out of control environment that we use here in the US or abroad, depending on where our structures were at. We had to be ability to respond or a responsiveness had to be a high level prior to this evolution. And that led us to be very successful in the early onset of the pandemic with assistance in FEMA and some other locations where we had the ability to go mobile and to be active and not to be more proactive than reactive in some of these situations. And also we've got a big collaborative network of partners that we've worked with over the years. And what that allowed us to do is it allowed us to reach out and experience a larger perspective than just, hey, we need equipment in New York City. And we weren't just going to New Jersey and up to Connecticut and down to Virginia. We were going global to find equipment and get the process in place. So quickly on the map here, we've got our corporate office here in Seattle, Washington. We've still got an operational office. And Chris Murph, our vice president of sales, is on the line here too. He's based out in the Houston area. We've got an office in Washington, D.C., where we work with a group called USAID, where we manage HIV test kits throughout all of Africa. We've got our CEO and a sales-based and operations-based office in Southampton in the UK. We've got a small operational location in Dubai. And then we've had secondary offices in Kenya and other spots throughout Africa, depending on the missions and the role that we're having right now. At one point in the very far past of RMI, we actually ran a small paramedic school out of Kenya in Africa, which was amazing. And I wish to this day that I was still able to get some of our training ambulances or Defender ambulances back here to the States, because they would be amazing. But it was just very hard. And then if you look at those vessels that we have all over, those vessels include everything from Military Sea Lift Command, which is an offshoot of the US Navy, supply chain stuff. We've got seismic vessels, we've got polar research vessels, we've got offshore oil and gas vessels. We've actually got some small vessels that are doing public visitation trips to remote locations. And we've got all sorts of other contacts in that area. And we've got a ton of onshore projects. We've got oil and gas projects. We've got significant new growth in the non-oil and gas energy fields and the renewables and wind farms and solar platforms throughout the US. Africa, we've got a lot of mining. And so we had this global picture and these large scale opportunities. And what we've seen and the shift that we've had to make has been very growth in productive and very great and intensive relearning of the techniques. So what you can do in deepest, darkest Africa or South America doesn't necessarily fly in Louisiana or in Montana. And so we had to shift our thinking a little bit. And that's sort of where this next line came into place. Our comprehensive medical services that we've had in place forever. We start with the beginning. What is the beginning package? Is the person even safe to be where they're going? Can we get them there safely? Can we work with them to make sure that their health and value is 100% before they even get to the site? And then once they're on site, we've got equipment, we've got supply, we've got 24/7 telemedicine, and more so even lately, we've got COVID services, we've got testing and laboratory systems that we can take to sites to help. And that's been part of that growth. And then should something actually happen, we have the emergency medical services on site and the evacuation piece where we can get them back to their home of record, or even to what we call a center for medical excellence. So if we're coming out of Africa, that might mean we're going to a stop in Dubai or even into Germany to hit one of the larger medical centers prior to coming back to the States or to a home of record type site. Some of the things that we've seen in the past that we've also worked on is, medical staffing is not just putting a paramedic on a site or an EMT. There's safety staffing, there's background checks to put the right person at the job. So if a person comes to me and says, hey, I was a former military medic, and I go, great, so was I. What's the next step? What are you looking to do? Where are you looking to go? And we will partner them in the right direction, because we have to put the right person with the right job. Health promotion is just as big on site as it is before you get to site. So having the medical staff on site who also know the job and know the environment that they're getting into became a critical piece as we moved forward. And then the infrastructure, whether that was a fixed clinic at Kandahar Airfield, or it was a large scale Ford F-150 or Ford F-550, depending on the site, with a backdrop of an ambulance or mobile clinic, and how we've proceeded to grow all of those pieces as well. One of the things I wanted to show everybody, my slides are frozen. Oh, that's great. Whoa, sorry about that, folks. I don't know what's going on here. My video is not as good as I need to hire the SetJetter folks to come make a video for me, and we'll be good. So if you look at this, we've been a remote contractor now going on 20 plus years, just about 20 years in the renewable fields in the maritime industry. We have a significant background in austere. Up until August of 2020, we ran 160 people medically throughout Afghanistan. We had a large clinic at Kandahar Airfield, and we had medics out at each one of the forward observing bases, the FOBs throughout the area. And they weren't just working with military, they were working with contractors, they were working with foreign nationals and local nationals and providing healthcare. We've got groups and partnerships all over the Middle East, North Africa, who are providing not only care to a contractor, but they're caring for the local region. One of the things we had our partners one of our partnerships down in not Africa, excuse me, Arizona, was a mining industry and an oil and gas industry. And they said, hey, we want to vaccinate our people. And we said, great, get the vaccine and we'll figure it out. So what we did is we partnered with them and the local county. The county provided the vaccine, we provided the staff and the medical equipment, and the oil and gas company paid for it. And we vaccinated the entire county early on in the pandemic. It was one of the first major full pushes throughout the counties to get that done. And we took our background in remote and austere environments and remote non-traditional medical clinics to make that work. Currently, we're running a project, which is a fairly new version for us, but it's with the Department of Health and Services in the UK. We have approximately 30 vans and 15 trailers that are mobile labs and mobile vaccination platforms that we can literally, when the Department of Health says go, we fire these vehicles up and we take them to that site and we can do mass testing and mass vaccinations throughout the UK. And what that's given us is this sort of global platform for a remote physical site. These vehicles are great. They've got offside tents and they look like the world of overlanding gone medicine. It's an amazing way to look at the platforms and usability there. We're doing diagnostic on site. So your turnaround time, instead of being 12, 24, some of us have had those tests where you've gone to a lab and got a test and it takes 3 to 4 days to get back. We're getting those results back in a matter of an hour to 2 hours on site, and you're able to get those fixed locations done. For the Department of Defense and some of the contractors, we've been testing about 1,500 people a month. 1 week a month, we roll into Fort Irwin down in Southern California in Barstow, and we test everybody. And we've kept that base secured. We did numerous FEMA contracts early on with sort of that background that we had where we were building mobile labs and testing facilities throughout New York and Los Angeles and everywhere else. And these larger projects on the national scale led us to work with some of the entertainment industries who were trying to, like the SetJetters, get people back into the world of seeing what's out there. And we worked with Netflix for a long time, and it branched out to Sony and Viacom and all of their subsidiaries. Even in the fashion world, we hit the Tom Ford fashion show. We tested roughly 2,000 people in about a 4-hour window on one glorious Saturday afternoon. We've got everybody back. But I think the biggest piece and the biggest part that we wanted to let everybody know is that not only have we taken what we knew in the austere and remote international environment, but we brought it back here to the States. We brought it back here to make people understand that what works in the backcountry world works well during the pandemic, worked well here where we were locked up. Currently, we're running all the testing for the Washington State Legislature. This is the first session in 2 years where they're able to go live. And that is because we're on site testing 300 to 400 people a day so that they can be safe in that location. We tested all of Snohomish PUD for the last several months, and luckily this week they were put to test. The weather came bad. If you're not from up here in the Snohomish area, they have been super busy, but those folks all went out and were tested every day. The city of Tumwater, we hit the city of Tumwater through a virtual testing process. We're using a computer system and virtual testing to get Tumwater back into their offices. We've been working with school districts. The Seattle Academy is one of our big ones here, and then the Castaic Union School District down in California. Not only are we testing the staff, but we're providing test kits that the students can take home and have so they become ill at home and need to be tested prior to coming back to work. So we've taken our global impact in our international market, and we've turned that remote and austere into how we can make that work here in the US in a fashion that allows us to show that it's not just external medicine, it's internal medicine, and how we work in these random and unique places. And so when we started out during the pandemic was to simply survive. The part that we wanted to do is we wanted to protect and save lives and get people back into their community and back into their life. And through testing and getting to these different sites, we were able to do that using our non-traditional medical backgrounds to put people back into their communities. And along with SetJetters, it gives them something to do in their communities. So again, my name is Joel Walker. I'm with Remote Medical. And looking forward to asking and hearing any questions you may have.
Fantastic. Thank you, Joel. And please do start putting your questions into the chat as we go forward here. I have a couple questions of my own that I'm going to start with, but please do add your questions into the chat, and I'll look into those as we're having our conversation. And so I'd like to throw it back to SetJetters. So I am by far a self-confessed SetJetter. I've got Iceland and Croatia just for Game of Thrones. I've stayed in Stanley haunted rooms. That's a whole other conversation. And now I want to go to Turkey for Troy after seeing your presentation. But one of the things that you had ended on is please download the app, check it out. But you have this amazing social aspect of the entire experience, and I want to ask you a little bit more of how you want everyone to interact with you now on the social basis, like because I look at I'm one of these people that I can't go out to North Bend with somebody in the car and not show them the gas station from The Vanishing where Jeff Bridges kidnaps Sandra Bullock as Kiefer Sutherland's inside and the whole bit. And do you want people to say, hey, can you throw in some scenes from this movie? How do you want beyond just downloading it, seeing it? I want to do more on the app. What do you want me to do now that I've done that?
Go ahead and take that, Viv.
Yeah, sure. Well, yes, you can absolutely submit scenes. One of the first logistical humps we had to kind of get over, well, I should call it a mountain really, was scene entry. And we do still do it manually. We've kind of come up with a bunch of other ways to do it, like built some code that can kind of grab information off the internet. But user-generated content, which is exactly what you're talking about there, Erik, which is of a movie scene and you want to put it in. We have a function right now in the app. You can submit the scene that you want to see and we'll put it in for you. And that's actually a big key to our growth, because it means that, yes, our users are engaging with us, but they're also getting the content that they want to see and they want to share. So it's instrumental not only for growing our database, but for kind of making the experience of being on our app personal, and you can contribute to the movies and the set jetting experience that you want. I mean, we've taken a pretty good guess that like you might want this particular Star Wars scene, but there's a lot of scenes. I mean, there's 24 to 30 frames per second. So maybe you don't want Luke Skywalker's back. Maybe you want, I don't know, some other random side character, and you can submit that scene. So yeah, we really want to create a really engaging environment where the users take ownership of the app. And that's kind of opening up and the bigger answer to your question is, how do you want to engage with the app? We actually really do want to hear from users, because we are just starting out and we're only really a year into doing this. It's really important for us for people to kind of put their hand up and say, hey, I like this, I don't like this, I want to see this. It's really, really important for us.
Fantastic. I'll take it back over to Joel at RMI. So Joel, Erik ended with just advice to keep at it and really utilize your connections. And I wanted to see if you could speak to that more, because knowing RMI, I've known RMI for quite some time and worked with them closely on a number of projects, and you've gone from this this amazing international company, and then we're able to flip it to be able to find the connections to Washington State, nationwide activity here. How did that come about? I mean, that's a big whip to go from international connections to state and local, like you did. It's pretty amazing. I wanted to see if you could just illuminate that a little bit.
Yeah, it actually played well out when you look at the fact that non-traditional medicine is what has been brought to the forefront here. So we're not talking about going to a clinic. We're not talking about going to a hospital. We go to testing in what we call tricons, or big steel containers with a canvas tent over top of it. We stand in a line outside and somebody swabs their nose, or we pull up and there's 12 guys in gear outside. So non-traditional medicine really played the biggest role. And when you look at the global impact, the groups that were in New York, the groups that were in Louisiana, in LA doing the large scale testing were not large medical groups. Not, it wasn't Johns Hopkins. It wasn't, the Mayo Clinic. It was small groups that work internationally and have this picture because they know how to work with the system, but outside of the system. So for us, people came to us and said, look, we know you can build a clinic in Africa. We know you can run a clinic in Afghanistan. Can you help us support this testing procedure or this structure to run? And some of the things we did is we actually built a small medical center on a floating barge in Louisiana, in New Orleans, that actually was an old military barracks for when vessels were coming into dry dock. So it was basically a floating hotel, and we actually were able to outfit that for medical services instructors. So it was taking that austere thought process and bringing it back here to the States to say, we can do anything you need us to do. Just understand it's going to be done in a very small and tight structure. And once the groups realized that our background was in making that work, we did so. And a lot of our international partners, a lot of our large, what we call government prime partners, came back to the US to do the same things. And they started working in New York and LA and Florida and down in Texas and in California. And they came to us and said, hey, can you do this with us here? And I think that was another big piece that we got out there. And, as it states in some of our beginnings, we're very agile, very collaborative. We're willing to work with other groups to make the step forward. And that worked out well because there's groups that can do logistics, right? Erik, your group is great when we talk about logistics. Like I can always want to say, Erik, I need box A in this location and I need it in 7 days. And Erik goes, I got it, no worries. They called us and said, hey, I need a medic or I need somebody with a medical background to do this. And we said, we got it. When do you want them? And then we worked on the backside to make it work. And I think that was the biggest picture, was the ability to flex and not be fixed into this, have to be inside of a hospital structure to make it work.
Good stuff. And as a follow-up, as sometimes happens when people present well, everyone wants to know if you're hiring. So we have a question for RMI if there's roles for nurses at RMI, and then also from Erik. That was from Heidi Lovett, and then also from Erik at SetJetters, asking to how it was for you to lean on your past, on your the mix of civilian and military in assets to what you do today.
Well, first, it's easy. You go to remotemedical.com. We've got a spot that says join the team. We've got numerous amounts of medical spots, everything from non-EMT COVID testers to physicians, emergency physicians, doctors, mid-levels, what we call mid-levels. So PAs, nurse practitioners, RNs. We've got spots all over the globe. Tell us when you want to start and we'll vet you and we'll get you rolling. It's pretty much that hard. Erik, I'll tell you, the transition was interesting. My transition actually started, I left the military and went down to run a school in Western North Carolina teaching wilderness and primitive skills. So people literally came to see me and paid me money to show them how to rub sticks together to make fire. And then I had to get dressed and put on like shoes and a button-up shirt and moved into the corporate life. But a lot of what happened is when you look at corporate medicine, large-scale health and human services medicine, the military has done very well with that. We've been doing that for decades. And so it was very easy to make the transition to say, holistically, we're going to look at you as this package. We're going to look at you as this patient, as this individual, and make the health assessment to get you there. Normally, you go in a civilian market, you go get a physical done, and they go, you're good to go. We'll see you next year. Come back and pay us whatever it is. And they draw some blood. In the military, we look at individuals and we look at a health assessment. We look at an individual package moving forward. Can that person deploy and be healthy in an austere environment? Or should they be sent to a more mundane, lack of better terminology, excuse me, fixed site location, Germany, Spain, something like that, where they're close to medical care. They can still serve the mission, but they're closer to medical care. So it wasn't that hard to make the transition. It was great because I got to grow out my beard. However, I was with the funny guys and other clothing, so I had a beard half of my time in the military as well. The assets are good, and in the military, we know we're real quick to ask for help. And so we got on the phone a lot, and I said, "Hey, this is what I don't know. How can I fix that?" And I see that with my clients now, call up and say, "Hey, I don't know this. Do you guys know this?" And we go, "If we don't, we'll figure it out and we'll let you know." And we get back to them. And that's something that we've used in the military as well as the civilian lately, has been to grow that asset, right? Grow your bat belt, right? We all have bat belts. We've got our tools everywhere stashed. And how do we grow that asset? And that's what has been a lot of fun in the transition times.
And if I could add on to that, I'm going to tell a personal story of the first conversation I had with Joel Walker. And he had just come on and he said, "You know what, I don't know about sales. I don't know about this corporate environment, but I'm going, that's what I'm going to do." And we can all see how famously he's done this. I spent October with him in DC, and he was he's not only amazing with representing his company, but in how he's driving their service product for what he does. And so kudos to you.
Thank you.
We have just a minute left, so we're about to transition into our virtual networking. So I want to give a big applause to our presenters, to SetJetters and Remote Medical. Please stay on for the virtual networking if you can. I know on the East Coast it's now passing into your close of business, but I always throw out a kind of an icebreaker if people are a little shy. And the icebreaker today is really just, are you ready to move forward outside of the house, kind of engage? I mean, mask restrictions are coming down. Are you comfortable with that? Where's everyone's comfort level as we walk into this great new beyond? So with that, it is now 2:00. We will start our virtual networking, and I think we just stay right here. Is that correct, Pratima?
Yes, we stay right here.
Fantastic. Okay.
So do we just start talking then? Or?
Yeah, sure. Go right ahead.
Well, I think I'm so excited to get out there into these austere environments that I've grown to love over the last 15 years. I'm sitting here thinking, well, while I'm building this app, I'm going to get a hold of Joel and see if he can put me on assignment somewhere. I've been exposed to disease for the last 15 to 20 years around the world. I'm very excited to get back out there and engage disease again.
Nice.
Well, I guess if you take it from my daughter's perspective at 6 years old, she doesn't know the difference between a mask or not a mask right now. It's just been norm for her in school. So when she was told she wouldn't have to wear a mask, she just kind of looked at me and go, "But I like my masks." So I think you've got that aspect of, some of us, I work from a home office. I have a mask somewhere near the front door. And if I go to the grocery store, I've got it. But I think a lot of people are just it's going to be back to norm. They're going to flow out the door and they're not even going to recognize them. And they're going to see somebody in a mask and they're going to go, "Oh yeah, I got to get one of those." And they're going to run over and grab one of the temporary ones from somewhere. But I think, yeah, Eric, I'm right there with you. When we traveling, let's just go. Let's get on a plane, put me in the back of a Defender 110, and let's just go rip across Africa and get it done. I'm all about it.
I have a friend who contracted with you guys, I think in Burundi, who was our Africa contact in case we got rolled up over there.
Nice.
Excellent. Yeah, I think I think travel is so important to how we engage globally in our lives and everything we do, though, because it's like you were talking about with not only just the local scenes, but the culture and everything like that. I don't know anyone in Seattle who hasn't been asked, hey, where's the houseboat from When Harry Met Sally, right? It's part of our lives. And I can tell you that with SetJetters, I've gone through all the markers already for my surroundings, and I've gone, binge the movies when my wife has said, "Hey, I'm going to go upstairs and read," and I'm like, "That's great. I'm gonna hit some SetJetter points." But I think it's really important to even to see your surroundings. And I had moved out from DC, and still in the height of the X-Files. And the X-Files had so many great scenes from DC that I would just watch the X-Files all the time just to remember and see all the scenes, because I would constantly, DC is a place we get a lot of visitors, and I would constantly do my own little tours. And the minute I started mentioning, like, hey, if you watch the X-Files, you'll remember this. And people would just connect with that like completely. And I could show them stuff in the Smithsonian all the time. And at dinner that night, they'd be talking about the X-Files scene that they saw. It's a powerful thing to connect with.
It's one of the things that inspired us to do this when we thought down. I mean, we knew we weren't doing, on some level, we're not doing the level of work Joel is to really do a massive good thing in the world, on that level that everybody can identify with. But when we really took a look at it, when we moved around the world to these regions, Xinjiang, China, which, is in the news all the time right now, we were up there right at that time. We have footage I'm afraid to release because I don't know if I will get back into the country, etc. I mean, we had conversations with the Uyghurs up there. They drove our cars. They told us about being kept like zoo animals and this sort of thing. And then, so we go to these areas, but they're beautiful areas. And you really want people to know about not only the geography, or the geology, but the culture and what it is. When we were up in Kashmir, Jammu, you want people to know what is there. And then the people on the ground, whether it's in downtown Seattle or in Brownsville, Oregon, or in Kashmir, they're all just trying to make a living. And a lot of that living is off of people traveling and visiting those areas. And it was really important for us to make sure that we somehow connected those 2 points, those people traveling, whether it's just to get people back into downtown Seattle or get people to travel abroad here shortly. For us, that was a really, I guess, a very light level humanitarian sort of thing we wanted to do with the app. Not to mention, as you said, people resonate around the scenes and the films. They always talk about them. And here's our opportunity to get you and your kids or your family and go out and walk together and find something, just like geocaching, and interact and get outside. Even though you're on social media, you're not on the couch.
Yeah, very true.
Yeah, that's a great one, Eric. I got to tell you, I grew up with family in the Smithsonian. So when you guys are ready to go, give me a call. My uncle just retired. He was the head of paleontology. So Indiana Jones, it's 100% correct. When they flip on the lights and it just clicks all the way down the entire storage facility, that's exactly what it looks like in the top of that building. But yeah, I think to tie in what you're saying there, Eric, one of the things that we saw, and I know I personally have dug through your site, is my son, is a scout. And as soon as the scouts were able to stop meeting virtually and get back into person, even though we said, hey guys, you got to meet outside in the rain or the snow. And they went, okay. They looked at us like, what's the problem? We're ready to go. And so any chance that we've had to provide the ability to increase that output, that back out into nature thing for a guy who teaches wilderness medicine, primitive skills, is definitely a good thing on my part. And so, geocaching, your site, even better. And I love the analogy of Pokemon Go. That's the selling point right there. I'm glad my family is not home to hear that, because we have done numerous trips around the state of Washington just to do Pokemon Go with my kids, which is amazing. And so having another venue for me is definitely
That's hysterical.
We'll have to, Joel, we'll have to compare rubbing sticks together at some point. I was part of the early part of that show Alone. You're probably aware of. I was part of the early part of the development of that.
nice.
I went out for a week and was tested by the SAS to see what would happen.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a good group of folks. We had the producers come in after season 1. I think one of the things that's cool about Alone is, if you're not familiar with the show, they put people out and there's multiple miles between them and the next person. And the only people they get to talk to is themselves and a camera. And they're in a wilderness survival situation. They have to make their own fire and catch their own food and all these things. And when we talked to the producers after the first season, they went, "Oh, we were planned for like 6 to 9 months, right?" They thought they were going to go forever. Well, they last like 50 something days. And they forget about the human nature of communication and being close to other people and just seeing another human face. Not many people can talk to a tree for 50 days and survive, and that's sort of one of those things that we've worked on in a grand scale. So was that Heidi, was that you
in the conversation?
Yeah.
Ilsa.
Yeah. I mean, that's what happened with the lockdowns. People got locked into their homes and didn't think about that human to human communication as much. And kids learning on Zoom. I work with robotics students, high school kids and younger, trying to keep them engaged during the time where we were all locked down and we had to do robotics where you can't touch the robot, you can't build anything, it's all online, and we're just trying to keep them socialized, if you will. They were so checked out because they spent all their day at school on a computer with no human touch or interaction. As soon as we could get them into the shop together, everything turned around.
Yeah.
And we saw smiles again, even though we couldn't see smiles because of masks.
Yeah. There was one jealousy point that I had, is that my son could get out of bed in his pajamas and go to class in his pajamas, and it was okay. I don't think we've ever had that permission, but I think you're 100% right. I have the kids. My kids are in school. My wife is actually a teacher. She's a special education teacher and is a behavioral analyst. So some of her students were hit exceptionally hard by not seeing that interaction. And so anything that we can produce that puts that interaction out there is huge.
I think that's one of the things that we learned, and I don't think we realized. We realized it on a grand scale with the isolation you're talking about, Heidi, but there was isolation before that. Kids are isolated in families, communities. There's constant isolation that causes huge harm. And I think it just dawned on us, this person has some mental health issues, whatever, we won't look into it. But I think that if we look back, it has a lot to do with isolation. When I was getting evaluated for that show Alone, they're actually originally going to put me out for a year alone and nobody else. And they realized if I fail, there's no show. And so they're like, not going to do that. But I went through a huge battery of tests for days and weeks. And it turns out I'm afraid of nothing except for being by myself. And I had no idea. But now it's
I did. I've traveled with you. Erik, I get on an airplane for like some sort of ass-long flight, and I take some sleeping pills, and Eric's like, wait, I wanted to chat. What am I gonna do for the next 13 hours? And I'm like, I don't know, man, you got 10 minutes before this kicks in.
You know what? One of the things that has really been brought up a lot lately, and that I think we have to, in this country, we have to rethink as a society is our elderly population. That it's been an issue for quite some time, but it's just been magnified by the pandemic in crazy ways. And my wife and I talk about it all the time about our experience when we've gone to Iceland. And Iceland is a country where your elderly population is still really integrated in the community. They go out to the public pools and they go for a soak in the hot tubs, and they have like these community groups and they go for tea or a drink and talk about politics and things like that. And we don't. It's so different here, and we've and it's so the mental health of our elderly was just so vulnerable when we went into this, and we have to find better ways to kind of integrate them in the community than we have. I mean, especially as we all get older. I mean, I would hate to be, like Erik said, like a load. I'm a social pig, man. I need that interaction. So.
Well, we all are. And I also noticed this with the introverts as well. And we've got a couple of them in my family. My sister's one, and she noticed it, is that the work and community provided the very kind of little bit of social interaction they did have. And at first, all the introverts thought, oh, great, this is the perfect thing. I can finally just have human beings on a screen. But even introverts needed human connection. And because they didn't have that same level of social skills that extroverts did, that my sister suddenly found herself having to reach out and organize to connect with other humans. Whereas that work environment provided that for her without having to plan that. So it's been really interesting watching, from just the impact it's had, elderly, different types of social skills and introverts and new personalities. It's just been a really, really, it's been deeply impactful. I think we'll be seeing the effects for years to come, honestly. Erik and I have talked about this with the education, the kids that have had to do 2 years of formative schooling, and how that will ripple through when they enter the workforce.
Sure. If you talk to people who are graduating college now and compare that with your social education in college, there's a huge gap of what we experienced and what happens today. I mean, that was happening before, just with cell phones, smartphones, in my opinion. But talk to like someone who's graduating this year, and you will not have the same experiences that they have. It's we had to find places on our own without just picking up the magic box in our hands and or things like that, and wait for a phone call, things like that. So
I think that one of the things that we've discovered traveling in around the world and to all these communities, and not often in big cities, often in rural villages, and we often have these long haul flights to talk, and it really dawned on us that one of the problems, especially here in the United States, is the lack or inability or want to travel or to experience other people, other cultures, whether it's the South coming to the North and the North to the South, or us moving, going to Africa or India. And when we don't have that kind of interaction, we start to get stunted as people, and these generations moving through now are getting stunted in a similar manner, and it becomes a problem relating back to, in my opinion, a problem relating back to what you were talking about with the elderly. We've accepted in our culture anyways now, it's, if I don't agree with you, I don't have to talk to you, I don't have to interact with you, I don't have to do anything with you. And we used to, if we disagreed, we would still talk, communicate, have an argument, and still be friends. And I've seen this drift into the younger versus older population. You're older, you're this, I disagree with you, even amongst families and parents. I don't talk to my parents anymore. They're wacko, they think differently. And I really think as a society and a community, seeing these other cultures who do the opposite, they communicate and they have arguments and still love each other and get along. I think we really need that to begin to transcend our culture, not only in the obvious parts of politics, but in family as well. And I really think it all comes from travel. We've talked about when our company reaches a level of financial, greatness that we hope to achieve, we really like to sponsor some really big travel scholarships that, we'd love to even, if we could, I'm dreaming now, lobby that before you get any kind of college financial aid, you've got to go travel for a year and here's a stipend to do it. And you got to go somewhere, not to France or, somewhere that's easy to go, the UK, but you got to go somewhere like with RMI, go spend some time with those guys, see what the world's like. Anyways, I'm banging on here. Sorry.
No, I think, what's funny is one of the communities that it's kind of this low key. If we look back at some of, I grew up on the Eastern Seaboard. I grew up right outside of Philadelphia. And so it was very common in the summertime as you're playing in Philly, in West Philadelphia, here you go. There's all these people, families, generationally deep, just hanging out and sitting on the street together and being part of a family group together. And conversations were easy. People say, you talk a lot and you just walk up to groups. I can just walk up to a group and start talking, but we're not going to see that. So the future migration. But one of the groups that's actually changing that is Toastmasters. Has anybody seen a Toastmasters thing lately? It's becoming more popular because we're in a room like this and they're trying to figure out how to just talk. And so groups like that are becoming this evolution of communication. And it's going to be interesting. And when people can see like, oh, we're all different heights actually. And, we have different facial structures. It's not just a mask and everybody is this big. I'll tell you, I'm 6'6", pushing 300 pounds. Eric's seen me before, and it's like one of those like, oh, so I have to make sure that I come down a little bit to talk to people. I don't like to stand over people, and I'm gonna have to remember that. That's going to be a new one for me. And so all those little intricacies that we had for years, and then Erik, I know you've done it in Africa. Nobody talks to each other standing up. You start a quick conversation and everybody sits down and you get on the same plane and you just enjoy this atmosphere. We don't have that right now. And I think that's going to be a big, big push for us. It's going to be amazing.
I couldn't agree more. I often say, especially for our kids as well, I think once you've been to a place, you're much less likely to want to declare war against them, right? So often the not knowing is where the fear comes in. And if we can get, especially here in Seattle, I always used to say, the families around us, and some of them are very affluent, it's Disney and Hawaii. Those are the areas they cover. If we could just use that same budget and get people to expand a bit more into places that are strange and new and challenging, because we all know that, right? The moment you've been to a place, there's an affinity that grows, unless your experience there was absolutely horrible for some reason, but it's usually not something that you're going to hold against the people. So I don't know, I'm very pro incorporating travel and moving around into schools as well, opening kids up to the possibilities. And I think there were some opportunities during the COVID time. Some people did some amazing things in their classrooms by bringing, now that we do have the Zoom capability, bringing people in, and then the kids have to guess where they're from, but they can never ask them any direct questions. It's like, it has to be about the food or things like that. So there are opportunities to use what I think Zoom has brought a wonderful dimension into our lives, but there's some things that just can't replace, right? The human contact, you just can't replace that.
My son was born in Virginia Beach, and one of the things that was great for his class is they actually got to do a virtual discussion with reenactors at Jamestown, and the park ranger at Jamestown then took them on a video, literally on his cell phone, walk them around Jamestown so they could see the entire structure. And he was like, so if you come visit for real, you can't see this thing, but let's go down here because I have the keys to the door. And he took this entire classroom from Washington State to Jamestown in Virginia. And they got to see this and they got to interact with somebody dressed up who was talking about the time. And my son was very familiar with that because that's where he was born and he spent many years there. But for these other kids, I think that's something that Zoom has done. That's a good thing. And this virtual world has done, right? We've also learned that we don't need to go to large meetings, and I can sit in my home and conduct meetings and really make, great contributions to a lot of different things from one location. But it'll be interesting to see where the split begins to occur and how many years from now when that actually happens.
We conduct travel here in Seattle with my family. It's forced because I am an autocrat here in my own house. But I'll take them just one recently. I drug them down to, and I look for the most authentic type of environment I can. I found an Ethiopian restaurant connected to a family grocery in a part of town you probably wouldn't go near SeaTac, and it looks like maybe it's just it looks like Africa. A couple chairs and tables, and I want to bring them in and say, hey, listen, we're going to eat some goat, and you're going to meet some amazing people, and they're going to speak to you, and you're going to go back in the kitchen. I don't arrange it ahead of time. You're doing this, you're going to eat this crap, and which not crap, but they think it is. And all of a sudden they get to meet the young girl who's their age, who's running the store with her mom, and they're astonished, and the food tastes good, and the people are nice even, but they don't look or act like us. And you could do that right here in Seattle and get that experience.
Yeah, another. I think there's kind of an appetite for it, but but we'll have to see how it all kind of unfolds, because I don't know if you guys are familiar with iFit, where you like on a treadmill or on a stationary bike, where they have instructors who've done these courses like through Morocco or South Africa. They'll do a run, and you basically the elevation of the treadmill will keep up with your terrain and the speed, and you can do different levels of difficulty, but you're in Morocco, you're like in Chefchaouen, you're in Fez, you're going through marketplaces, and it's just amazing. And and I also heard just yesterday that the movie studios have like a trove. You would know more about this, Erik and Viv, that like a trove of productions ready to launch when people get back into theaters. And so I'm just hoping that we'll have it seems weird now. It seems, even to me, it seems like really all of a sudden all the mask restrictions coming down like next month. But as much as I want it, I get that people have a little bit of trepidation and and are not willing to leap right into it. But it seems like hopefully this is going to be the year, right? When it all kind of comes about, and hopefully sooner than later. So like I said, maybe our second quarter could be in person with a virtual element to it, and super looking forward to that. But I still know people who are pledged to still be wearing masks in the grocery store until like June or at the least.
I mean, it's not a bad thing. I mean, it doesn't harm anybody, and a lot of the world still does it even before COVID. So I think whether people wear masks or whatever they're doing, it just as long as we get everybody in person, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah. Yeah. So does anyone else want to hop in who hasn't talked yet? I'll make sure everyone has a chance to say hello.
Well, I just want to point out, this is the first Zoom meeting where I've been with two Joels.
I was just about to say, if nobody else was going to chime in, I was going to say, you got a great first name, so you obviously get the win for the day.
Yeah, and I think around the masks, I've been so healthy the past couple of years. My kids are in college. I'm, walking around with a mask. I haven't gotten sick at all. Well, I had one little cold, but very, very minor. So I might still keep wearing masks here and there in public settings just for that reason alone.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing is your kids aren't at home anymore. So I have two little ones, and it seems like I was never sick before, but with those little ones, I've never had the flu until I had kids that were in school. And
little germ farms.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I work with high school kids all the time, and I've been around kids, and I never get sick. So
You got a super immune system then. I guess mine
I
wasn't
think
as
you just
strong
have
as
to
yours.
build your immune system.
Yeah.
Get out
Go
there,
eat a little bit more
eat the
dirt,
dirt,
let's be all
lick
good.
the rails at the airport, all that good stuff.
But one
wanted to
thing we
say-
did,
Oh,
real
Go
quick, going back to what you were talking about travel and the educational experience of that is, I think it's so important. Absolutely. What we did with our kids, because I had it growing up myself, was a lot of world travel. And I think it's very freeing for youth to be able to travel, experience all these sometimes quite challenging experiences, situations, but also just opens their eyes to what the world, the disparities in the world, I think. I go to Nepal and show pictures to my kids of Nepal and, the wealth disparity, and they're still really happy. You don't have to gain happiness by making a lot of money, just do the right thing and, follow your heart. That's where happiness roots from. And I hope their message is getting across. They're great kids, but I think that the traveling abroad is absolutely crucial. So I just
yeah,
wanted
it does teach about happiness, doesn't it? The kids are like, oh, but I don't want to, live like that. And I always tell them, you don't have to be satisfied. That's okay. That keeps you hungry, but you got to learn how to be happy. And I think these other cultures, like Viv and I've been to Nepal up there for quite a long time. And you understand what happiness is. And that's hard to teach until you see it.
Yeah.
This is Martin. One of the programs I was on when I was in college that I was accidentally stumbled upon was I was on a works activities program at the American Farm School in northern Greece. And there was a little sign on the bulletin board that my mom found and said, "Oh, you signed up, I'll send you." And that was a great experience. But the farm school also had Greek summer, which is for junior and high school age students. And the school pairs them up with a remote village, and the kids go and live with the families. And they do like community service, fix roads or build farm structures or whatever. But they actually have to live with the family, who don't speak English. And then for, I think, a couple of weeks, and then they come back and then they go on their trips around Greece. But that program is available at the American Farm School. And it was an institution that was set up in northern Greece at the turn of the century to teach agricultural method, American and English agricultural method. Started out as a high school. And they introduced sweet corn and pasteurized milk to northern Greece. And they still produce the milk in these green bottles that is just to die for, because it's not skimmed. So you get cream and everything. And they introduced turkey, and they had the two coolest VW bus that we tool around in, to the tavernas.
I'm in. We're there.
Yeah,
Let's go.
it's if you're in the area, pay them a visit. It's a really interesting institution, and they survived, the Nazi occupation and everything. But that was a great experience, and for high school students, I think it would be a great experience. That would be the scholarship that you were talking about, Erik. That would be good.
And I'd like to say hi, Martin. I haven't seen Martin for 2 years. He lives 4 blocks from me.
I go by your house there almost
Well, I see you
regularly on
ride
our
by.
tandem bike.
Yes, but I don't count that as seeing you.
Yeah.
Waving on a bike. But we
My
gotta
daughter-
meet up.
My daughter's friends with Erik's daughter, and my daughter's always telling me, "Don't copy Erik, Addie's dad. Don't do what Addie's dad does. Don't do it. Don't get any ideas."
Too funny. Well, we're up to just a little past the time. So definitely great presentations. I don't know if you've been following the chat. Everyone said love the presentations, love the conversation afterwards. So thanks again, Erik, Viv, and Joel, and thanks particularly to Pratima as always for supporting this and putting it on, and for everyone for attending. So it's a fun day, and we'll do it again for Q2.
Thank you, Erik. Appreciate
All
it.
right. Thanks, Erik.
Thanks for having us.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day.
Bye.
Thank you.